The Tampa Bay Buccaneers are all loaded up on the struggle bus, but we're going to tell you how things can start to get better sooner rather than later. Let's go.
You are Locked On Buccaneers, your daily Tampa Bay Buccaneers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, and welcome to the Locked On Bucs Podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. We are your daily podcast covering the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, free and available on all platforms, including YouTube, and we thank you for making us your first listen or view every day. I am James Yarcho, flying solo on this episode, but check out everything my co-host David Harrison is doing over at Sports Illustrated's BucsGameDay.com. Check out my work over at SB Nation's BucsNation.com. And, of course, follow along on Twitter at Locked On Bucs, at JYarcho_Bucs, and at DHarrison82. Again, we thank you for making the Locked On Bucs podcast your first listen or view every day. Today's episode of Locked On Bucs is presented by Prize Picks. Prize Picks is daily fantasy made easy. Pick 2 to 5 players, and if they score more or less than their Prize Picks projection, you can win up to 10 times your money on any entry. First-time users can receive a 100% instant deposit match up to $100 with promo code Locked On. That's prizepicks.com, promo code Locked On. The secondary is now a major concern on a short week, but I'm going to let you know why there is a little bit of hope coming up in just a little while. But let's start things off with the continued offensive struggles of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. In their 4 losses this season, the Buccaneers have scored 77 points. You think, all right, well, that's not bad. That's almost 20 points a game. You're losing them. That doesn't sound too awful. It sounds about right. Well, 31 of those came in the game against the Kansas City Chiefs. Outside of that, they've scored 36 points in 3 losses. That's 12 points per game. Here's the big issue there. I've talked about the red zone. I've talked about the play calling. I've talked about the offensive line. Let's take a look at another issue that the Buccaneers are having on the offensive side of the ball, and it's third downs. In those 4 losses, the Bucs on third down went 2 for 11, 6 for 10, 4 for 14, and 2 for 12. That's a third down success rate of 29%. When you are not sustaining drives, when you are not converting on third downs, that's a big reason your offense continues to struggle and continues to leave points on the field and continues to put your defense in a bad situation. Last season, the Buccaneers converted 44.8% on third down, including their wins. In all 7 games this year, the Buccaneers are converting 37% on third down. That's 22nd in the NFL. And right now, that's about as good as the Bucs are, is 22nd in the NFL. You'd be hard-pressed to find too many teams that you're confident the Buccaneers are better than. Take away the names, take away the legacies, take away the fandom. Find me 10 teams that the Buccaneers, you are 100% confident they can beat this week, right now. It's hard to do. And the Baltimore Ravens coming up on Thursday are not one of those teams. I would have said that the Carolina Panthers and Pittsburgh Steelers were absolutely 2 of those teams. Not anymore, because you don't know what you're going to get with the Buccaneers. We can point to play calling as an issue here. Byron Leftwich continues to try to run behind a weak offensive line. Brady's passes haven't been as accurate as last season or the 2020 season or really any time over the course of recent memory. And I know people are hating on me in the live chat of the postcast and hating on me in the comments here on YouTube, tweeting at me that I can't blame it all on Brady. I'm not. But when you take a look at an offense that was second in the NFL in scoring last season, and trying to figure out why they can't get in the end zone against the 28th scoring defense in the NFL, you're allowed to point to the quarterback, regardless of who it is, and say, he's not playing the way he normally plays. You can do the same thing with Aaron Rodgers in Green Bay. He's not playing to the level we are used to seeing him play. It's okay. He's not immune to criticism. Now, a lot of Brady's struggles, again, can be attributed to a weak offensive line. Ali Marpet's not coming back. We don't know when Ryan Jensen is coming back. And I do honestly, truly believe that once Jensen returns, that offensive line improves immediately. And that's not a slight against Robert Hainsey, because I would not be surprised to see the Buccaneers slide Hainsey over to guard where he played at Notre Dame to help solidify that line. But the playbook has to open up. Everyone in the stadium knew that on 3rd and 1 in the first half, the ball was going to go to Leonard Fournette. Sure enough, it's a handoff right up the middle to Leonard Fournette when the Panthers had 9 guys in the box ready for a 3rd and 1 run. On 4th and 1, when the Bucs decided to go for it, everyone knew in the stadium knew that it was going to be Leonard Fournette again. This time it wasn't up the middle. It was a toss for who knows why. But the playbook has to adapt. It has to open up. And I understand Brady's internal clock is sped up a little bit. The offensive line is not getting the push that we've seen over the course of the last 2 or 3 years. But use Cade Otton more. He had 4 receptions on 5 targets for 64 yards, second most yards on the team. Use Evan's size on a quick slant to gain a couple yards. You saw on short down and distance situations against the Panthers, the short, quick passes to Chris Godwin, moving the chains. Use Rachaad White to change it up a little bit. Use a double back set with Fournette and White. You can run a play action to Leonard Fournette, quick little screen pass set up for Rachaad White, and you're going to gain a yard. You're probably going to gain 15. But it's the same thing with this offense over and over and over again. It's like banging your head against a wall for 3 hours, and then you wonder why you have a headache. It's the same stagnant, inept, uninventive, lackluster play calling for the last 7 weeks. All NFL teams will try to game plan to hide their weaknesses. But not only are the Buccaneers trying to hide their weaknesses, they're also avoiding their strengths. Their strength is not running it behind Luke Gedeke or Nick Leverett on 3rd and 1 to try to move the chains. Their strengths are Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, Russell Gage, Tom Brady, and now possibly Cade Otton. Use those players. If you have to gain a yard, just a yard, I will put my money on Mike Evans or Chris Godwin making a catch that needs to be made to move the sticks. I am not putting my money on the offensive line getting enough of a push against a stacked box on a short yardage situation to be able to open up a lane for Leonard Fournette, who's not a great short yardage runner to begin with, to gain 3 feet and get a first down. We're going to talk about the secondary coming up in just a moment. But first, this episode is brought to you by Prediction Strike, the world's first sports stock market. You can now invest in professional athletes just like stocks. It's a lower risk alternative to sports betting, and athlete prices move based on performance as well as supply and demand. If you invested in Jalen Hurts a year ago, you'd be up 48.2% on your investment. But if you invested in Kyle Pitts, he's down 44.12% after struggling in the first 7 weeks of the season. I also can't imagine that there are too many Buccaneers players right now that are giving a positive return on investment. But you know what they say, buy low, sell high. with 2.5% trade fees. It's the lowest money in real sports. And it's not just the NFL. You can invest in 4 sports: the NFL, UFC, NBA, and MLB. Download the Prediction Strike app and use code LOCKED for a free share when you sign up and make a first deposit of $20 or more. That promo code LOCKED is also going to enter you in for a special one-time giveaway. Prediction Strike will choose one person who signs up with code LOCKED and makes a deposit to win 100 free random shares. That could be worth up to $3,000 if you're lucky enough to receive Josh Allen shares. Invest in what you know on Prediction Strike, the stock market for sports. Now, whether you're looking to pop the question, have a milestone to celebrate, or want to let your love sparkle, Blue Nile can help you make your celebrations even more memorable. As the original online jeweler, Blue Nile offers the largest selection of independently graded diamonds and pieces priced significantly below traditional retailers. Looking for a piece of fine jewelry to commemorate a special milestone but still having trouble choosing? Blue Nile has jewelry experts on hand 24/7, available via phone or chat to help you find a memorable gift at every budget. My 15-year anniversary is right around the corner, and I've been working to find that perfect thing for my wife, thanks to Blue Nile. Make your moment sparkle with Blue Nile. Go to BlueNile.com. Use code LOCKEDON to save $50 on your purchase of $500 or more. That's BlueNile.com. Code LOCKEDON to save $50 on your purchase of $500 or more. BlueNile.com. Code LOCKEDON. Thank you for making Locked On Bucs your first listen every day. For your second listen, check out Locked On Sports Today. From the games that matter the most to the biggest stories in sports, go beyond the scoreboard and behind the scenes with local experts and insights only Locked On can provide. Locked On Sports Today, available on this app, YouTube, and wherever you get your podcasts. David returns on tomorrow's show to tell you what he saw from the Buccaneers in their 21-3 loss to the Carolina Panthers. But it's time to take a look at that secondary that is getting more and more banged up each and every week. Already on Sunday, the Buccaneers didn't have corners Carlton Davis and Murphy-Bunting. Now, I said in my inactives report for BucsNation.com that if you were going to sit Carlton Davis, this is probably the week to do it, right? You already knew Murphy-Bunting was out, but Carlton Davis has been dealing with that hip injury for a few weeks, and it's like, okay, let's get him some rest. Big game against the Baltimore Ravens on Thursday. Why don't we go ahead and sit him down, give rookie Zion McCollum some significant playing time? You're going up against an offense that has DJ Moore and DJ Moore. They traded Robbie Anderson. They traded Christian McCaffrey. Probably don't actually need Davis this week against PJ Walker, DJ Moore, and whoever else the Panthers are able to trot out. Well, the lie detector test determined that was a lie. But Logan Ryan just had foot surgery, so he's going to be out a little while. There's a safety. In the game, you lost Antoine Winfield Jr. to a concussion. That means he's unlikely to play Thursday night, especially with the way that the Tua Tagovailoa situation went down. You just saw Cameron Brate return from a concussion and then immediately suffer a sprained neck. The NFL isn't messing around with concussions right now. So you've lost Antoine Winfield Jr. for the Baltimore Ravens game. Again, that's my speculation. It's not an official report, but I would say that, in my opinion, there is a 99.9% chance that Antoine Winfield Jr. doesn't play. It's a huge blow to this team, not just the secondary, to the team. Antoine Winfield Jr. is third on the team with 37 tackles. He's got 3 sacks, 4 tackles for loss, a forced fumble, an interception, and 2 passes defensed. He is a leader in that secondary. He's probably on the cusp of becoming a captain of this team. So with him out Thursday, Logan Ryan is out Thursday. You take a look at Keanu Neal, who played well on Sunday against the Carolina Panthers. 4 tackles, a tackle for loss, a pass defense. He has to step in now. But now he's partnering with Mike Edwards, who's dealing with an elbow injury. So he's already banged up and playing. I do believe Carlton Davis will play on Thursday. I think that was the entire purpose of him sitting out this week. Remember, he was a late scratch. You take a look at the Bucs injury report from Friday. You knew that Sean Murphy-Bunting was out. You knew that Logan Ryan was out. You knew Akeem Hicks, Cameron Brate, all those guys were out. Carlton Davis wasn't ruled out until Saturday. So that leads me to believe that the Buccaneers probably felt, you know what, we can get through this game without Carlton Davis. We need him to rest up. He's not going to be able to play 2 games in 5 days, basically, on that injured hip. Let's rest him against Carolina. We need him against Baltimore. So I do believe that Davis plays. But something else that needs to help out this secondary is the pass rush. That has to be there against Lamar Jackson, and not just the pass rush, which you're going to have to get from the interior. You have to be able to have contain against Lamar Jackson because he's more dangerous with his legs than he is with his arm. Baltimore narrowly escaped against Cleveland. You had Donovan Peoples-Jones fumble on a catch that was recovered by Baltimore late in the fourth quarter that sealed a 23-20 win. But Baltimore's also struggling right now. They don't have J.K. Dobbins. Gus Edwards had a great game, but they don't really have any receivers. Could they potentially call up Deshaun Jackson from the practice squad? Well, yeah, sure, maybe. But the number one issue against Lamar Jackson is containing him. Shaq Barrett, Joe Tryon-Shoyinka, Anthony Nelson, Carl Nassib, you didn't hear any of their names on Sunday against the Panthers, and that was PJ Walker. You didn't hear any of their names. The only time I even noticed Shaq Barrett was when he got beat because he was in coverage, and I think it was against DJ Moore. But the pass was completed and it moved the sticks. You can't have your pass rush disappear when your secondary is depleted. They have to put pressure on the quarterback, force him into mistakes, sack him, take him down, and give that secondary room to work with. If you're giving Lamar Jackson all day, he's going to run the ball or he's going to find an open guy when coverage breaks down. There's no question about it. You have to be able to get after him with Levante and Devin. You have to be able to get to him with the defensive line in Vita Vea getting push up front. Logan Hall has to step up. William Golston has to step up. It can't all be on Shaq and Tryon-Shoyinka and Nelson and Nassib to get him from the edge. Those guys are in charge of making sure he doesn't escape the pocket and run for 35 yards. So if you have Carlton Davis return, you still have Jamel Dean. Zion McCollum played well. He really did. He saved a touchdown run for a play when he chased down Deontay Foreman on his 60-yard rush. Granted, Chuba Hubbard scored on the very next play. But McCollum overall played a really solid game the first time that he was called upon to have to step in and be a starter. He's supposed to be the number 4 guy. Now, all of a sudden, he's starting, and for a rookie in his first significant game, he looked pretty good. But you still need Davis back. You need Sean Murphy-Bunting back. You can't go up against the Baltimore Ravens and rely on Zion McCollum and D. Delaney to slow down their receivers. You're going to have Mark Andrews out there who's going to be a problem. You know, how many times is he going to be matched up against Levante or Devin, taking away their ability to get after Lamar Jackson or spy on Lamar Jackson, because now you don't have Antoine Winfield Jr. that can come down and cover him. So the secondary is almost as big of a concern as how poor the offense played. But I do think you're going to get one major piece back in Carlton Davis coming up next week. Finally, we're going to try to make sense or not make sense of situational football, which the Buccaneers seem to be very unaware of at the end of the Panthers game on Sunday. But first, shout out to our friends at Prize Picks. How does it work? You pick 2 to 5 players, and if they will score more or less than their prize picks projections, you can win up to 10 times your money on any entry. No competing against other people. It's just you against the projections available. Prize Picks offers projections on any sport that you can watch. That includes the NFL, NBA, MLB, NHL, PGA, college football, college basketball, boxing, MMA, NASCAR, cricket, Euro basketball, any number of options. You have safe and fast withdrawals, and they are currently operational in over 30 states and Canada. Download the Prize Picks app or go to prizepicks.com to sign up and play daily fantasy sports. First-time users can receive a 100% instant deposit match up to $100 with promo code Locked On. If you deposit $100, $50, $20, $30, $75, Prize Picks is going to match that deposit all the way up to $100 as long as you enter promo code Locked On. That's right. Don't forget to enter promo code Locked On at sign up for an instant deposit match up to $100. Wrapping things up here on a Monday edition of the Locked On Bucs podcast. And I want to talk about a very puzzling decision that the Buccaneers made, among many, but this is the specific one that I want to talk about, where they kicked a field goal with just over 13 and a half minutes left in the fourth quarter. Now, the Buccaneers are trailing 14-0 at this point in time. So you get first and goal. You have 3 consecutive incomplete passes by Tom Brady. Sets up fourth and goal from about the 8-yard line, and you opt to kick a field goal. To me, this didn't make any sense at all on multiple levels. If Suckup makes the field goal, which he did, it's still a 2-possession game. So whether you went for it on fourth down and cut the lead in half to 14-7 and made it a 1-possession game, or Brady threw a 4th straight incomplete pass and it stayed 14-0, it's still a 2-possession game. Even if you fail, you now have the Panthers backed up inside their own 20-yard line. My concern here for the decision to kick the field goal, and I don't know, you could argue that the reasoning was you kick the field goal, if you get a stop, you score a touchdown and go for the 2-point conversion. If you get that, now you just have to get into field goal range at the end of the game instead of needing to score a touchdown. Okay, fine. I'll give you that. But to me, you score a touchdown on that play. That's going to energize the offense that they finally got the monkey off their back and got over the hump and got in the end zone in this game. A game where they should have been in the end zone multiple times. You're also going to energize the defense, who had been having their butts handed to them late in the game because the offense couldn't sustain drives. You know, the defense is going to feed off of that score and say, all right, we have a chance, take the ball away, force them to punt, 3 and out, whatever. Let's give the ball back to our offense to build off that and give ourselves an opportunity to tie the game. It's a huge momentum swing if you get in the end zone on that drive. Is this a bigger indication as to the decision-making of the coaching staff, or was it a lack of faith in the offense? If it's a lack of faith in the offense, where does the finger get pointed to? Does it get pointed to Brady for the incomplete passes? Does it get pointed to the offensive line for the lack of protection and the lack of push? Does it get pointed to Byron Leftwich for the poor play calling throughout the day? But we've seen NFL games change on a dime. And in a game where you're losing 14-0 and you are 8 yards away from the end zone, settling for a field goal, to me, is not only playing scared, it's admitting defeat. At that point, you're saying, we just don't want to get shut out. It reminds me of 16, 17, 18 years ago, whatever it was. And John Gruden opted to kick a field goal with less than a minute left against the Pittsburgh Steelers just to avoid the shutout. I think that game ended like 17-3 or 27-3, something like that. But he kicked a field goal with time expiring just so they wouldn't get shut out. That's admitting defeat. That's being scared and admitting that you're going to lose. With 13 and a half minutes left, scoring a touchdown there can change the game. Kicking the field goal says to your team, we're not winning this. We just don't want to get goosed. Go back and listen to the postcast. I laid out plenty of people that are to blame for this. I laid out plenty of issues that I have with the play calling and with the coaching staff at this moment in time. I'm really interested to hear David's thoughts on it tomorrow, but there's no doubt about it. This coaching staff needs to have a sit-down, closed-door meeting with someone or a group of someones. Whether it's Jason Light, Bruce Arians, the owners, whether it's Bowles, Leftwich, and Brady sitting down in a room and hashing it out and figuring out where they can go from here, or it's a combination of all of those people. Something has to change with this football team, and it has to come from within. You're not finding an Ali Marpet or a Ryan Jensen roaming the streets that you can sign to bring in and come help. Odell Beckham Jr. and Rob Gronkowski are not going to walk through that door and magically save the offense. The problems are much deeper and much more significant than being a player away. And again, if Jensen comes back and Hainsey moves over to guard, I think they're a whole lot better. And I think they're a whole lot closer to being a more explosive offense, but the problem is not solved. At this point, at 3-4, on a short week coming up against the Baltimore Ravens, there needs to be some serious reflection done. And there needs to be some answers to a whole lot of questions about how things are being run, how plays are being called, and how players are executing. It starts inside that building. And if we don't see a drastic improvement in week 8, it might be time to hit the panic button. With that, I am going to get out of here. Thank you again for making Locked On Bucs your first listen or view every day. Now make your second listen or view the Peacock and Williamson NFL show. Brian Peacock and former NFL scout Matt Williamson give you the expert NFL analysis in less than 30 minutes. It is free and available wherever you get your podcasts. If you have anything that you want to add, anything you disagree with, anything you want to talk about, anything you want to ask, go ahead and give us a call at 813-444-5841. We are going to have plenty of voicemails coming up when David returns tomorrow. You can check out his work over at Sports Illustrated's BucsGameDay.com. Check out mine over at BucsNation.com. And, of course, follow along on Twitter at Locked On Bucs, at JYarcho_Bucs, and at DHarrison82. Hope you all have an absolutely outstanding day. Stay safe, stay healthy, fire those cannons. We thank you so much for joining us right here at Locked On Bucs.